Cory Fenn, thank you for being here at the Joshua Wilderness Institute on our podcast, Wilderness Survival.
It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's the best having you.
When my agent said that you wanted me on this, I got really excited.
Who's your agent?
Biff Malibu, I think.
Cory, you've been coming to Joshua. You've been involved in Joshua for a long time. We have a history at Joshua. Fill us in. What's your experience with Joshua?
So I attended this program 0506. Great class. Still dear friends with many of the people who I attended Joshua with. And my time at Joshua really set me on a course to be serving Jesus in full-time ministry. I really accredit this institution for the life that I live now. The values that I have, the way that those values are expressed through the way that I choose to live my life. A lot of that worldview was formed and shaped in my life, here under this roof.
Yeah. We did Joshua together. Fun fact, we were roommates, and we were just talking a little bit earlier about some funny stories that happened in Joshua. We were talking about jumping couches and jumping off of...
breaking stuff.
Yeah. Also, both you and I almost got removed from this program.
Yeah, that's
pretty
crazy.
early on. And we would have had different lives if that had happened.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been good.
It's the surreal thing anytime that you come in. I mean, I've told you this, that when I watch you speak at Joshua now, I go like, how did we get here? This is the best.
Yeah. I think that there's a sweetness that God has given us. And in some ways, redemption, although things weren't broken. I'm really proud of my time here, and I'm proud of a lot of what Joshua did in me and how I've, kind of served the Lord. But it feels weird to come full circle. As I this week have watched the students, I know exactly what it was like to sit there. The world may have looked different, but what God does in this place, I feel like, is the same work He's always done. So.
Yeah. How does being a student, being involved in Joshua for years, how does that inform what you talk about when you come and speak?
I always make it a goal. This is the third time you've had me come as a speaker. I always make it a goal to teach from the perspective of here's some lessons that should help you get the most out of Joshua that you possibly can. And so as a communicator, repetition is something that I lean on a lot. And so I've said that a lot this week. My hope is that you'll get everything out of this program you can. And so here's some things about God as we read in His Word that should help you with that.
Yeah.
We talked about how much God loves you. We're going to talk about how God is present with us. We'll talk about who we are in light of who God is. And those are just lessons that I really help frame the mindset of your students to think about this opportunity, this privilege that they have to get everything out of it that they possibly can. I think it's interesting. When we remove stuff from our lives, we tend to put our mind on it, right? It's like a diet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm cutting out sugar, and then all you think about is how bad you want a piece of cake or whatever. And I think for Joshua students, a lot of time the fast becomes something they fixate on. And unfortunately, when all you think about is how you can't do things, it's going to make you want to do them. Mm-hmm. And so trying to replace what they've sacrificed with what they're going to get out of it has kind of been the angle that I've tried to teach from this week.
So much of that, as we're here in Joshua's talking about the whys, why are you giving these things up? I shared a story, I think you know this. I was so funny in Joshua when I gave up movies and music and all this stuff, because I remember doing this thing. I went home for, I think it was Christmas break. I went home and I was so like, look at me. Look at what I've given up. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, I went into the living room. My family was watching a movie or a football game or something. And I sat in front of the computer with my back to the TV. And outwardly it was like, he's really sticking to this fast. But you know what I could see in the reflection of the TV or of the computer monitor was the TV. Mm-hmm. And that's so much of what I communicate to students now is, you can do this from a mindset of, look at how I'm doing this, and look how great I am, that I've taken 9 months out. But the heart of the problem is the problem in the heart. We say that so much. You can do this, and you can look good, but you can be looking at the football game in the computer screen. I say that because I'm curious, what is your heart for a student? When they come, they give up 9 months. They're giving up these things willingly. What is your heart when you come to speak for a student to grasp hold and to take this into everything that they do in life afterwards?
Yeah, it's like I was saying, the analogy of like a diet. It's funny. I feel like sometimes, and I have the privilege of being here in the front half of the year. Like they haven't had a true break yet. They'll do that soon with Thanksgiving. Is the point of Joshua that you gave things up to be here, or is the point of Joshua what you hope to get out of it? Because if we focus so much on the fast and the sacrifice that we make, then that's where our mind's at. And we're going to think about it, and we're going to be tempted, and all of those things that would follow. But if you think about this as, no, I'm actually sacrificing to get something out of it, then what you hope to accomplish, and the goal becomes the primary focus for a student. And so I'm all about that in life. It's almost like a brain hack.
Yeah.
Don't focus on what you've given up. That's the price of admission. You know, if you go to Disneyland and pay the $17,500 or whatever a ticket is now, and all you're thinking about all day is how much it costs to go, you're going to have a terrible time.
Have you had a trip to Disney like that?
I feel like all of life is
the
that.
The first time I went, I was just mad the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in traffic the whole time there.
Yes.
Traffic the whole time at the park.
So you just shouldn't have gone. You know what I mean? And so I think for Joshua's students, or if someone's listening to this because they want to go to the program, I don't know if that's a thing, right? And all you're thinking about is what you gave up to be here, you just shouldn't do it. Yeah. You should be thinking about what you hope to get out of it. And the sacrifice and the fast is the price of admission so that you can do everything that you guys have designed this program to be.
Yeah.
And so you have to reframe your mind. And I think that kind of hack works in a lot of areas of life.
You're the only speaker I think that we have who has done Joshua.
Yeah.
What was Joshua like for you?
Well, it's funny. You were telling me that I'm the best speaker that you guys have, and I don't. I don't personally think that's true, but it was a kind thing that you said. In fact, a lot of people have said that to me this week.
Yeah.
I forgot your question. What was your question? It sounded like Trump. It's good. Yeah, it's really kind.
The best. I'm the best speaker.
No one's spoken like me.
As you did the fast, you came to Joshua. What was your experience?
Has anyone ever mentioned Trump on this podcast?
No.
Hey, if you guys could just leave in the comments, who'd you vote for? I'm just kidding. What was the fast like when I came here? I don't think it was nearly as much of a sacrifice as your students make today.
Why?
Because the world is so digital now.
Yeah.
And so the sacrifice really does feel like a monastic sacrifice today.
It totally is. I interviewed a student last week that was like, I just want to come because it feels like a monastery.
Yes, exactly.
Like, okay,
and,
cool.
And in some ways, with the world being as online as it is today, this sort of is a digital monastery.
It is, yeah.
So when we came, I had a cell phone. I don't even think I charged it until it was time to go down the hill for a trip.
But do you remember we came in 05, 06? The iPhone hadn't even been invented yet.
Laptops were surreal, you know? I remember, I never even thought I needed a laptop.
Yeah.
And then I got here and people had laptops, and I was like, oh, that'd be nice to have. I remember Christmas during Joshua, my father got me a laptop, and I was pumped. I didn't even know how nice it was. Apparently, it was a very nice laptop. I had no context for that. So I think in some ways, your students today, the sacrifice is much, much greater. Yeah. But at the same time, the reward is greater. You know, the yield is also greater. And I think that because who does this nowadays? You know, I get a screen time report every Sunday morning of how much time I've spent on my cell phone, and I'm embarrassed by it half the time. Because I'm like, where does that time go? What did I get in return for all of that time that I spent on my phone? The opposite is true for a Joshua student. What they're getting out of sacrificing all of that time that they could be spending sideways on social media and different things, I think it's a unique way in 2024 to disciple somebody. Yeah. It's very unique. You remove not just a distraction. That always used to be how the Joshua fast was described. We want to remove distractions. I don't think you're removing distractions anymore with the Joshua fast. I think you're removing a significant part of people's lives and showing them that you can actually get by without it. And you have to relearn how to use these things. Yeah. But I don't know that it's distraction removal anymore. It feels like a significant portion of today's world is voluntarily, set aside for 9 months. And I think what students get out of it is huge.
It is a huge piece. You read so much in the news or, you're watching news, and there's there's always people, everyone I know is going like, I just am going to use this stuff less. I'm going to eliminate, this aspect, or I'm not going to watch this much TV. And there's kind of this like piecemeal of taking aspects of what kind of everything that we do. And it's like, I'm just going to choose one of those and get rid of it. So it's interesting that really we take everything, well, they give up everything. And then within the first month, you kind of see this, like kind of like start itching of like, oh man, I miss the dopamine hit from social media. I miss the affirmation from a relationship. Really miss listening to music. But then 2 months in, you start to realize, or you start watching the students, and they're going like, oh wow, that they're not jonesing after that anymore.
Oh, I'm sure that if you had a way to measure this, you would see increase in mental health, decrease in anxiety, decrease in depression, simply because of how much comparison and just the number that social media, just social media alone. I know that's not the only part of the fast, but there's probably measurable health that happens because they've foregone that. And I think it's actually, you don't have to go to Joshua to do those things. No. You know what I mean? Like I have times throughout the year where I'll intentionally set things aside. It's a fast. Yeah. It's a spiritual discipline that we're invited into. And anytime we fast, for me personally, it's always replaced by opportunities to sit in God's presence. Yeah. So you don't have to go to Joshua to do it. I have times throughout the year. Most of December, I'll go off social media. I'll fast certain things in January just by way of a New Year's resolution, if you will. Yeah. And some of those things stick with me throughout the year. I don't really need that. I don't want to pick that back up, whatever.
I think the interesting thing about being here is the community piece of everyone living together and doing the same fast together. What was your experience with community in Joshua, and what has it been since Joshua?
I've always been a social butterfly, like extroverted. As I get older, I get more introverted as I get older. I don't know if that's normal. Maybe someone could tell me why that's happening. I love quiet time now. I never did before. But the community part was awesome. I think Joshua was my first go with like godly community. And it was cool, to your point of everyone's doing the fast together. It was cool to have like a camaraderie among people who are doing the same thing. We're all doing this program together. So that was, I like that. I appreciated that. Community's always been a part of my life. I don't know how you get through life alone. Especially as a man, like as an adult man, so many men don't have friendships. And I accredit a lot of who I am today to the friendships that I've forged and held on to and developed over the years. Especially if godliness is your goal. The scriptures say to discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness. I don't know how you do that outside of the context of community. And we'll make much of, my personal relationship with Jesus. And I think there's actually a lot of fallacy in that, because there's really no such thing as a personal relationship with Jesus in that sense. We are the church, which is the communal body of believers. So yes, personally, me and Jesus spend time together, but collectively we do too. So it's our faith as much as it is mine. And I think for a lot of your students, this is the first time they really get to experience, and sadly, maybe for some of them, it's the only time in their lives they'll experience community in the way that it's meant to be lived. Yeah.
I mean, full disclosure, you and I we did Joshua together. Yeah. We were roommates in Joshua.
We're pals.
You've been one of my best friends for 19 years now.
That's very kind.
Thank you.
That's a nice thing to say.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is I know so many people that are my age that don't have deep community and those long friendships. That matters.
It matters deeply. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the ways that, and I've shared that my life was transformed in Joshua the same way yours was, and we got to do it at the same time, which was fun. But it's been really sweet to have friendships that last longer, and to talk to students now and go, this is the time in your early 20s, late teens, to make deep and meaningful relationships that are going to carry on further. And, you and I, we care more about, hey, guys need to have good, strong relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And women too. But you finished Joshua, and you actually, of all of my friends, you hopped straight into ministry.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I did. I went right into it because my life was so transformed. And I feel as though I found purpose. You know, there's moments in life that mark you when you meet the person that you love, having kids. I don't know that enough is said about the moment you find why you're on earth.
Yeah.
And I think the gospel has kind of marked me in such a way, and God invited me to be a part of his kingdom expanding. And that's not unique to me. I think that's a mandate that every believer has. I just tend to go full send. And so I went for it. And it's been awesome. It hasn't always been easy. But I'm really grateful for the life that God and the opportunities that God's given me in the name of Jesus's message being advanced in the world around me. So yeah, I love it. I applied for an internship right out of Joshua, and I showed up on the first day of this internship at a church. And you hear internship, you're thinking like, maybe there's other interns, and who's going to lead me? There was no one else there. And I remember asking the guy who hired me, like, hey, I thought I was an intern. And he goes, no, you're the youth pastor now. And so at 19, I was a youth pastor. That was it. That was how that went.
And you were involved in ministry, like church, parachurch ministry, for how long?
Since a long time, almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 38, started at 19, so 19 years.
Yeah. Right after Joshua.
Yeah. Which is awful. There has to be a training period. Like, there has to be some checks and balances. I do not recommend that. But I've made it, with clean hands. I've made it this far. So, yeah.
Well, it's also why you're doing what you're doing now. So explain what you're doing now and why that started.
Yeah, like we laugh about it. I showed up, was essentially handed a wad of keys that unlocked every door in the church and a credit card, and then was given a place of significant influence over the lives of students, some of whom were 1 year younger than me, and I got really lucky, I think, through Joshua and through some of the relationships I had, to where I had a healthy mindset about that. I really genuinely did want to serve, had a ton to learn, but was there for the right reasons. And the longer I went in ministry, the more I had this appetite for development.
Yeah.
And as I looked around, like, you can pay for school, you can go to seminary. I've always had mentors, some of whom still speak here at Joshua, which is cool because that's how I got connected to him almost 20 years ago now. But those mentors have been paramount for me in ministry, but not every pastor has that.
Yeah.
And so you're going through life trying to manage the influence that you have with all of the junk that life has thrown your way, and if you're not careful, it can be a recipe of disaster. I think we're all in tune to church culture. There's podcasts about church hurt. It's a very popular topic nowadays. Not a week goes by that we don't hear of another pastor falling and a scandal ensuing as a result of that. So through my time in ministry, I've kind of watched this go on and just realized, like, hey, there's room in ministry for someone to fill the gap of, I am where I am today, but I'm not yet where I'd like to be. And the bridge of that gap is leadership development. And so we started Onward in early 2020, late 2019. And Onward is a ministry that exists to care for, connect, equip, and encourage ministry leaders. However we can do that. We've done it through cohorts. We've done it through one-day events, retreats. Right now, we have a focus on young and new ministry leaders. That's something that we really desire to do, because I feel like if we can instill in young and new ministry leaders a heart for health, a heart for Jesus, a heart that doesn't look at the stage as a way to get ahead, but really just another opportunity to disciple people, then maybe in 20 years there's less pastoral scandals because people have their heads on straight at the beginning of their career. And so a lot of that was informed by my time here at Joshua and some of the help that I got along the way, just trying to find a way to offer that to other people.
Yeah. I love that, and it's been cool to watch you, even with people that I know, coaching people that I know, and coaching me. I mean, you've been someone in my life. When we restarted Joshua, I'll never forget going into the classroom. I think it was for a day or 2 days straight, and we just wrote on the whiteboard of what ought Joshua be, and what is it going to feel like, and what is it going to do in the lives of students.
Yeah.
And so it's been cool to see your fingerprints on this program as well. I mean, from the beginning of our time as students in Joshua as absolute knuckleheads, almost getting removed from the program to now we get to come and serve the Lord by serving students. Thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. I think, what God's doing up here is amazing, and it's distinctly different than anything else I see happening within, ministry towards young adults.
Yeah.
There's some opportunities out there for gap years. There's no other Joshua. It's one of a kind, and so it's an honor to get to be here. Thank you.
Well, appreciate it. And then your website, if anyone listening is interested in coaching or development, leadership development, being in ministry, maybe a new ministry leader, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, just at Cory Fenn across most social platforms. You can go to onwardleader.com if you want to hear more about our organization and either sign up or support us. We are a nonprofit. You can also go to coryfenn.org if you wanted a speaker or just to connect on a different level there. So,
Well, Cory, thanks for being here this week.